Hello, guys, and welcome to this episode of The Profitable Practitioner. I am your host, Maddie. I am so excited to dive into this episode today. Today, we have Marie Elam. She is a dedicated and experienced trauma informed coach with a passion for empowering individuals, couples, and families to heal, communicate, and thrive. Embarking on her coaching journey in 2012, Marie's mission is to guide her clients towards a deeper understanding of themselves, fostering self love without the burden of guilt. With a wealth of knowledge, Marie holds multiple esteemed certifications from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, the Health Coach Institute, and the Gottman Institute. Her academic prowess is coupled with a wealth of hands on experience, and she has contributed her expertise to a wellness center and has played an integral role in co building a practitioner school. I love this conversation with Marie. I also love Marie and owe a lot to her. Years ago, when I used to work at a wellness center in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, she was one of the co owners. And during that time, I had the opportunity to work with her a little bit, just have her guide me through a coaching session that was actually so empowering and really changed the whole direction of my life, if I'm honest, which sounds really dramatic, but it's so true. She kind of gave me some insight that allowed me to understand that I was living my life to please other people. I wasn't actually doing the things that were completely making me happy. And I was in a relationship that was not serving me. And I kind of just needed someone to tell me that. And I think I already had a pretty good understanding of that's what was going on. But I wasn't willing to actually accept it until she was able to bring that clarity to me. And I think having someone in your life to just like reflect back the things that you already know and give you that affirmation is so important, especially when it comes to building a business. So I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. I know I enjoyed this conversation with her, and I think you will as well. All right, I'm here with Marie. Marie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm so excited to chat with you.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for asking me. Anytime you ask, the answer is going to be yes. So yeah.
I love that. Well, let's get started. I just kind of wanted to dive into your background and how you came to get into what you're doing now.
Oh, I love this question so much. So I'm a trauma informed coach. So I didn't start that way though. I think about 12 years ago, I was working in a business, just a typical office job, just kind of in charge of some things. And I was always the person whose office door was open and people would like come into my office and tell me their problems. And I was always the person that would give wisdom, give advice, help. Um, and I was telling my mom about all these people that come to my office to get help. And she literally said to me, you should get paid for that. And that was that. And from that point forward, I was like, you know what? I should get paid for that. So I went into schooling for it and started by actually calling somebody who was already in the industry. I literally picked up my phone, found somebody that was like a holistic practitioner that helped people, and called her and said, I will sweep your floors if you will let me follow you around and just learn how to do what you do. Because at that point, I was thinking like holistic practitioner. I wanted something very natural because the typical system of doing things just wasn't working in so many ways. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I think that was pretty much what got me started. And I started apprenticing from her. And within 1 month, she started to pay me and was like, you need to be in this business. And it
Oh,
kind of
that's
launched
amazing.
from there. It started with just me helping around her office, learning from her. And then through my schooling and everything else, I started to kind of get into it myself.
Okay, that's so amazing. I love that because I feel like what you should be doing in life is always the thing that's like easiest, right?
Yeah, I think that's huge too. And I also think that a lot of people underestimate just buying somebody's lunch that's already doing what you're doing and saying, how did you do it? I think
Yeah.
that's so important to find a mentor, to find, even if it's one conversation, that one conversation could save you thousands of dollars in your business, could save you tons of time and energy and so many other things. And I think that was that I can go back and point my success to the fact that I went to somebody who was already doing it and said, how do I get into this? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No need to reinvent the wheel. That's for sure.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So once you started doing that, you just worked under her for a while. Is that correct?
I did. I worked under her for probably about a year. And then after that, we kind of became partners. And we went from working in an office that was like attached to her house to ordering a 3,000 square foot brick and mortar. And at that
Oh,
point, we
wow.
were running a wellness center together because I had all these skills that she needed from me, and she had some information that I needed from her. And together, we really built a very successful business. It wasn't until about, I think, 2017 that we went in separate directions because I wanted to come away from the brick and mortar. She wanted to invest more in the brick and mortar. I wanted to be able to work with people internationally and all over, so I could see myself doing more of my work remotely, one-on-one with people. And we parted ways then, and from then on I have launched just completely solo from there and have just continued to just go up and up and up. And I think it was just because I think when you are paying attention to yourself, you have to kind of listen to where your heart is, and sometimes where you think you're supposed to be doesn't quite end up. Because I thought brick and mortar, this is the dream, the wellness center. And then it's funny because now I've been working from home since pre-pandemic. So when the pandemic came, I was already working from home. Everybody else went home and I had already been doing it. And I was like, so I
Yeah. And
got
then
this
plus you're
really,
like trauma informed coach over here and everyone's like full of trauma.
I'm telling you, like it was as if everything that I was doing, I was listening to my gut along the way because I really just wanted to be home when my kid got off the school bus. It started with something really simple. Like I want to
Mhm.
be at home when my child comes in the door, whether they've had a good day, a bad day, whatever. And I just want to be that person that's there. And that was what first drove me to want to do from home. And now I realize all the other things that I benefited from it that just fueled who I am as a person. My ability to wake up and meditate and do some yoga or something just for me before I can give to my clients. And I can sort of create that model in my own space much better than I could in any other space. And so it's like I became more me the more my business went on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. But I'm the same way. Like, my husband's well, I do work too much right now, but he's always like, you work too much. But for me, it's like all worth it because I'm in charge of my schedule. Like I can
Yeah.
wake up and I can go for a hike with the dogs in the morning. And like if someone invites me to do something on a random day of the week, like I can do it, you know?
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I enjoy being able to do that as well. I think that it's huge. You know, if it's somebody's birthday, I can take the day off and move my clients around to the surrounding days and make it work in a way so that I can take that day and go spend it with a friend or my husband. And so yeah, I think it's really about listening to yourself. I'm really honest about the fact that I am ADHD among other things. Like I'm not saying it like some people like I'm so ADHD. Like I genuinely have been like diagnosed with ADHD, and part of that was just part of that journey as a businesswoman is giving myself permission to need things the way that I need them.
Hmm.
And so like it's funny, if I could turn my desk around and see it, you would see like I'm surrounded by like essential oils and things that give me a sense of calm as somebody who gets easily distracted or struggles with their executive function. Like because I'm able to control my environment, I set it up for it to be successful for me. It might not work for everyone, but I set it up. I put things in my life like where I need them, not necessarily where they go. And like I'm just,
Yeah.
it's just a way of sort of honoring myself. And I think when you get to know yourself, especially as you get older, like the more you get to know you and sort of accept your little isms, like all the things that are like your Maddie isms and my Marie isms, the things that are just for
Yeah.
me. I think when you learn to honor that, especially within the context of your own business, the success comes, you know,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
people appreciate that transparency, that authenticity that comes from
Mm.
you honoring yourself. And I think, especially in my work as a coach, like I teach people how to do this by mimicking what it should look like. Like if I'm
Yeah.
telling my client you have to take care of yourself and this is what the self-care can look like, I have to be living that life because my ceiling is their ceiling. And
Yeah.
so it's a big part my work day, a big part of my work day is my self-care that's just
Yeah.
poured into and kind of sewn into the fabric of my business so that I don't get the burnout, so that I don't, I'm not pulling my hair out of my business. And it means, paying the right people to do the parts that you're not good at,
Yeah.
taxes. That was the first thing that I was like, somebody needs to take this from me. And so I think, part of listening to yourself too is knowing what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you need to outsource to somebody else that might not be your passion, and it's okay. That way you can put your
Yeah.
energy where it is going to be useful, where it is going to be focused. I think that's huge. I love
No,
that you
I
love your work though. I think that's amazing. So few people get to say that. I think it's a privilege, really.
I think it's an incredible privilege. Yeah. And I really like what you were saying about, like that self-care being poured into your day, because I was like just having a conversation today about this where so often as entrepreneurs we really, I think we like see it as like a sign of like worth or value, like of how much time and energy we're putting into our business. But really, like, it's not all about the do. Sometimes it's just about like the be. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of the times when you take that time to kind of take a step back and just like really actually care for yourself, is where you can get like more of that creative flow. So you actually have like more of a direction of where you need to be putting your energy rather than just like mindlessly putting your energy? And
Yes,
that's something
absolutely.
that I've really been.
And I think a lot of people were sort of, especially again, I'm gonna age myself a little bit and say us. I mean, I'm 46, so us older people, a lot of what we heard when we were growing up was, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean. Meaning we were always pushed to be doing, hustling, hustling. My dad's an entrepreneur, and I remember him saying to me when I was like 10 years old, he was like, if you want to be successful, it's gonna take blood, sweat, and tears. And I was like, ew, no thank you. And he was like, well, how are you going to be successful in business? I was like, I don't know, Dad, marry rich. I'm not sure, but I'm not doing that. That sounds horrible. And I remember when I was going off to work on my own and I was leaving the brick and mortar and coming into working for myself, I remember saying out loud, I need a mantra other than blood, sweat, and tears to kind of go on that's going to solidify what I want my path to look like. And I was like, I want to make full-time money on part-time hours. I want to make full-time money on part-time hours. That's what I want. And because that was what I wanted and I was speaking that from the beginning, I make full-time money on part-time hours. So that is a part of how I formed my business with that intention. And I think if you go into the business thinking, I've just got to do whatever it takes to make it work versus a more intentional, specific, I'm not going to let this kill me. I'm not going to let this rob me of my family, my life, my health, my mental health, my physical health, my rest, my creativity. I think if you don't go into it with that sort of very intentional verbiage from the onset, the work will take you away. Because before I came up with that intention, I would just hustle, 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 and then crash and then have to recover for a while. And then as soon as I felt better, hustle, 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 crash. And the people around me were watching me just like kill myself for it. And I had to really take a step back and go, but what do I want it to look like? I know what I've been told, but what do I think? I mean, if I could make it up, if I could write it like a chapter in a book, what would I want it to look like if it was ideal? And then
Yeah.
I decided and I sort of worked backwards from there to have that.
I love that. I mean, like, you went into it like saying it out loud. You're like manifesting it to the world, and
Yeah.
you have like a clear direction of what your business is going to look like, which I think is very important, because a lot of the times I think people go in with no idea of what they really want it to look like,
Yeah.
and then you just made it happen. And
Yeah.
it's like reframing the way that, you know, so people have seen business for so many years. Like you
Yeah.
said, like entrepreneurship used to be a thing where you need blood, sweat, and tears, but you don't, like, there is work that needs to be put in, but if you do it in the right way, then it doesn't have to be that way.
And because I carve out that self-care when I am doing the work, it feels good. Like I'm excited to do the work. I've got the energy to do the work in the same way that if I've had a full night's sleep, I have the energy to face the day. Rest in my work life is just as valuable in the same way that if I've got to make a long distance drive in a car, I'm going to have to stop and take breaks and let my engine rest. Why? Because otherwise the car's going to break down. Your business is the same way. If you don't build in that rest, if you don't build in that time to just brainstorm and write down a bunch of ideas and be creative and be silly and fail a lot, like leave room for you to fail because it's going to be your best teacher. um yeah, I think that you'll end up feeling stuck if you don't kind of take that path.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was going to ask you, and maybe this is a stretch, but maybe not. In what ways do you see like trauma impacting people in their like progression and, maybe being an entrepreneur or whatever their dreams may look like? And like, in what forms do you see that trauma coming through?
Oh, so many. And I'm going to sound so political when I say this, but I want to say probably the biggest one is hetero women in married relationships with no support, or with
Mm.
somebody in their ear saying, this is stupid, like sort of gaslighting their dreams and saying, like, this is stupid. Like, you can't do this. Like, you don't even have what it takes to do, and when that voice, whether that was your parents' voice or your partner's voice or whoever's voice, a teacher in school when you were little, like when that voice has become your inner voice and now you're sabotaging your own experience, you're gaslighting yourself. I think that that form of trauma, that I'm not enough trauma, that is, I especially see in women, because I mean, if you think about it and you look back at kind of traditional gender roles, um, right? Like the woman has been sort of painted and made to believe that it's their job to do everything. I have to be the perfect mom. I have to be the perfect worker. I have to be the perfect wife. I have to be the perfect friend. I have to be the perfect, everything. And so that drive of perfectionism is so traumatic because it triggers our fight or flight or freeze or fawn. And a lot of us freeze and we just don't do anything. We don't take that next step that we should be taking forward because somebody one day a long time ago said you weren't enough or made you feel like you weren't enough. And so now you're second guessing yourself all the time. And so
Yeah.
that trauma is co-authoring your current experience all the time. So if you don't deal with that, if you don't ask I tell anybody that's deconstructing some sort of conditioning, whether that's religious conditioning or societal conditioning or gender role conditioning or parental conditioning from our birth family or what have you, any of that, to ask yourself 3 questions if you want to deconstruct it. One, according to who? Who told you that? According to who? Right? If you hear the word should or shouldn't come out of your mouth, you should be asking these 3 questions. According to who? Second question, who did that benefit?
Yeah.
Did that belief come
That's,
from your dad, and did it only benefit men in the family and not any of the women in the family? Third question, most important question of the 3, what do I want?
mm,
What do I want? Okay, that's what I was told. According to who? Well, my family or the church or this or that. Okay, who did that benefit? Only them. Wow, that didn't benefit me at all. Okay, what do you want? What do you want? And then
yeah.
chase that like crazy, right? Chase that thing that you want,
Yeah.
because it's, first of all, just give yourself permission to be allowed to want it. Even
Yeah.
if it doesn't happen, what is wrong with wanting it? I would rather chase something that I want and fail at it and fall flat on my face than to keep doing what the world has said I should be doing and be successful at it. I've been
Yeah.
successful in that world. I was a makeup artist for 10 years. I got to travel all over the place. I made very good money doing it. I got to have fun hanging out with women doing makeup all day, which was great. But it wasn't what was calling to me. And I was willing to take a pay cut to chase it. And I only took a pay cut that first year, and I climbed and almost doubled things like after that. It was crazy.
Oh,
And I just
I love
attribute that to just saying yes, instead of hearing all those what ifs, instead of listening to that trauma from other people's voices and from other conditioning. It's like, well, yeah, but what if I get it? There's that meme that goes around, what if you fall? Oh, my darling, but what if you fly?
that.
As long as we're making crap up, what else could be true, right? Like I want to make up good things. I don't want to just make up disempowering things. And I think that when you get help for your trauma, it's easier to hear your own voice over the voices of the people who have been maybe guiding you wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think okay, so it's so crazy to me how there's always like themes that just like come up and um it's I like this past week and then even today, like I've really been on this like contemplation of like kind of like the patriarchy almost, like you were bringing up like the heterosexual thing. And like I had like a complete meltdown the other night and was like bawling because like I mean I've had a good life, I'm privileged, like I do have good men in my life, but and it's not that I hate men, but it's just like I do like this patriarchal thing, it has like ingrained itself into my head, and it does make everything a lot harder. Like it makes believing in yourself harder. It makes people like men like listening to you and actually like taking your opinion into account. And
Yeah.
it like just really makes the way that you show up in life and with your business like different than it would be. And I think that it's
Yes.
really important that we do take the time to like, you know, actually recognize that and address that. And the fact that like as women, like we're just expected to do it all. And like it's like kind of this thing that I've been battling with because it's like, yes, like I want to be like a feminist, but at the same time, like, what does a feminist mean? Because like if a feminist means that I have to be superwoman, I don't know if I want that. Like it's
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think the definition of feminist has changed so much according to other people's understanding of it. And as a self-proclaimed feminist myself, I think it's a lack of doing and more of a state of being. And I
yes,
think if you take it in that way, and that doesn't mean that I don't do plenty of things, like because I believe in feminism and the patriarchy is alive and real, and the whole, you've got like the Barbie controversy, going on right now with the movie. And for anybody that's seen it, like I think all the women came out, and this is what I love about social media and podcasts and TikTok and all these places, because we are sitting here in these moments going, God, I hate this in my life. I hate this thing about my life. And it feels so isolating and alone. And then you connect with these other women and you realize not only is it a shared experience, it's almost a universally shared experience. And you go, oh, wait, this is all of us. We've all been conditioned and lied to in this way. And it's like, I always say that society has given men, the patriarchy has given men and women wounds. The wounds that the patriarchy gives to women is this idea that I have to be beautiful and helpful all the time. And beautiful has a very specific, thin, narrow line. And I use the word thin for a reason, right? It has a very thin, narrow line that you're supposed to follow, and you're not allowed to get fat, and you're not allowed to age, and you're not allowed to not be smiling all the time. And it's just like, and you have to be doing and doing. And then there's this sense of comparison between other women. I hear so many women say, I don't have a lot of female friends, women are catty. And I'm like, who told you that? Who told you that? Where did that idea come from? Was it from you and your actual experience? Or was it from, you know what I mean? And the wound
yeah,
that it gives men is this idea that they're not allowed to feel feelings unless it's happy, sleepy, horny, hungry, angry. And
mhm,
anything after that, and they need to suck it up, walk it off, put a cup on, stop being such a girl, don't be such a wuss, don't be such a pussy. That whole like lie. And it's hurting men too, that there's only one way to be a man, and it's aggressive and hyper masculine and violent. And, you'll do what I say, the alpha idea, which is not even a real thing. And so that ridiculousness, I think, is holding us hostage in a lot of ways. And I think in order to move forward in any kind of business endeavor, you're going to do a lot more unlearning than you will learning on the front end of it. Because
yeah,
that idea that I have to be a good girl, that comes from all of us when we're little, and good girls don't speak unless spoken to, and they don't rock the boat, and they don't start things, and they don't get mad because then they're being hormonal and emotional and they're acting crazy. And it's this whole like thing that's meant to just sort of subjugate you and keep you small. And
mhm,
I think that that's killing us. I think that
yeah,
it's hurting all of us. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm a big proponent of that. And I definitely don't think it means doing everything. I think it means addressing your own like beliefs and what you've been taught, what you've been told. And once you start unlearning patriarchal things, then that should transition into every intersectional thing, racism, homophobia, transphobia, like all of those things. Like once you start unlearning one, you need to start unlearning all of them, and
yeah,
looking into that, because again, it's hurting all of us, and nobody more than marginalized people.
yeah,
And
absolutely. No,
they have
I think
different
that,
layers of wounds that are even different than the privileged white faces,
yeah,
of people. They're dealing with whole different levels of trauma
hmm,
that's different, that has to be addressed too.
yeah. Yeah, that deconstructing I think is so important. And I think that that's actually like a really, you don't go into business thinking that it's going to help you like deconstruct your belief system or like grow, but actually it's going to do all of those things because it's going to push you in really hard ways and you're going
Yeah.
to have to confront some things. Yeah.
And you have to figure out where you stand and what you stand for, because we live in a we live in a capitalist society, and there is nothing wrong with wanting to do work that you love and wanting to make money to do it. But if it hurts somebody else in the process, you need to deconstruct that. Because if your
Hmm.
success depends on the dismantling of somebody else's beliefs, somebody else's experience, then you're dangerous.
Hmm.
And that's got to be addressed, and people have to be accountable. And that looks like when you're not that person, standing up in those situations and saying something. And that can put you in a weird place as a business person. I had to decide a long time ago, like, I'm a trauma coach and I want to help everybody, but if some very extremely conservative person followed me on TikTok or Instagram, really quick, they're going to find out who I am, and that might make them not want to do business with me. And I have honestly found that if I have to convince you to work with me, you're not my client.
Oh yeah.
And I think that everybody needs to be prepared to not get some people as clients, to not get some people's business, and to be okay with letting that walk away and not letting the money make you quiet about something you shouldn't be quiet about.
Yeah. No, I think that that's brilliant. It's like that's why like it's really important too that you really decide like your brand and your niche because you need to like you need to put out into the world what you are so that you attract that back.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it's just going to end in a mess.
Yeah. And the more honest you are about that, and if you're not sure who you are, you don't even need to begin that journey yet. Like, you got to start working on figuring out who you are and what you stand for, because your brand should be an extension of that. And that doesn't mean it's not allowed to evolve and grow and change over time as you do. It certainly is. But there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to ask yourself, like where you stand, what you stand for as a business as well as an individual, because it's all
Yeah.
married, you know?
Yeah. No, I love that. So I know that you've like been in business for a while and you've seen it change and evolve. How are you feeling with your business now? Do you feel like it's kind of like in the spot where you want it? Do you feel like it's still going to always continuously evolve? Like, what is that kind of outlook looking like for you?
That's such a great question, and I'm gonna sound so. And I'm so glad that I'm gonna sound like a beginner when I say this, because I think we should never lose that sort of student mentality of being a beginner in something. I am writing a book, and I am terrified of it.
Oh, that's so exciting.
And I say that with complete transparency because I need to hold myself accountable. But there's this fear when you are leveling up in your business, and I'm trying to do that right now. Um, because I kind of shifted my business during the pandemic. I had a different kind of clientele, I think, pre-pandemic than I did post-pandemic, and I really wanted to be a little more everyday person accessible, and not just accessible for those people who could afford it, because mental health, it costs money, and it's not easy, and the stuff I do isn't covered by insurance like typical therapy things, but I'm getting a very different result than typical therapy things too. But I even started like a donation fund so that some of my wealthier clients could donate, so that somebody who has not a lot of money could still access my coaching and not have to pay for it. Like a little scholarship fund, basically, where I'm still getting paid for the work I do, but I'm able to give more to people who maybe don't have it to give. I'm looking to elevate into doing more group programming things in the future too, to get even a lower price point where I can write ebooks and little small courses and things like that that are going to get people the information I want to get them, without them having to pay the big bucks for time with me if they're not able to get there yet. But also just the book writing process, and putting yourself out there in that way. I think that the bigger you go when you level up, the more you realize there's going to put more eyes on you, which is going to equal more criticism, more
Yeah.
judgment. And the internet is not kind, and everybody has an opinion. And I have to remind myself, and that's the thing that will make me get back to my keyboard and keep writing, is that it just matters that I like it.
Yeah.
And if I like it and I'm proud of it and nobody else likes it, nobody else is proud of it, that's still enough of a reason to write it. And I really had to strip myself back to that bare minimum to give myself permission to keep pursuing it. So I'm probably in my third or fourth chapter of it. I'm getting there, but I look forward to that. I look forward to being able to put that into the world, because what I know is my fear says everybody's going to judge it, but my hope says, but one person might not. And that might really help that one person. And is that enough of a reason to do it? Yes. Okay. Even if that one person is you, yes. Even if that one person's your husband, yes. And I keep going. And that's what I do. So
I
I
love
think
that,
even when
yeah.
you're scared, like find a reason. Like it doesn't mean don't be scared. Being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing it anyway, right? It's
Yeah.
about pushing through that feeling to get to the other side of it. And that means acknowledging it. And so I say out loud often, I'm terrified. I'm terrified. But I think
That
it's good that I'm owning that I'm terrified, because I'm sort of naming it to tame it.
Yeah, exactly. You're giving it a name, so it's less scary. Um,
Much less scary that
that
way.
is, like, really cool. Do you wanna share what it's about, or is that kind of more of a
I would
secret?
love to. Yeah. So it's sort of like self-help meets autobiographical, because I am taking you through how I learned these lessons that I'm sharing. I'm telling you
Okay.
the intimate stories of like what happened to me that made that lesson stick, that made that let me know that that was a reality to life that I needed to be aware of and share with other people. I'm telling you how I failed so that I got the right tools to get the job done that I wanted to get done, and what it felt like when I was doing it wrong. And I feel like approaching it from that way is going to be good, because I want anybody who reads it to go, oh my God, I did that. I did something like that. Or, oh my gosh, my story was much less crazy than hers was, but wow, like I love that she still got to that same place that I got through this. And for the people that are in the middle of it, that don't see the way out yet, for them to get
Yeah.
those answers and go, you mean there's hope for me? Like I don't have to be stuck here. And I just think that everybody needs that.
Mhm.
Traditional therapy models can be, not always. I love so many therapists out there, can be somewhat broken if they're only coming at things from a talking about it, a talk therapy approach. Because
Mhm.
I always left those kinds of places feeling like, well, I did talk about it and I do feel better from that, but now what? Now, how do I get out of that? How do I not feel this anymore? How do I feel something different? How do I change my circumstances? And I remember thinking, I just want somebody to tell me what to do. But I want that
Yeah.
person to be knowledgeable and trustworthy. And that's kind of, I mean, coaching is kind of like that. It's about giving you plays for the game. It's about, I want you to win at whatever you're telling me you want to win at. And so I'm going to give you the tools to make that happen and the instruction on how to use those tools to make that happen. And then if those tools don't work for you, I'll give you some other tools. Like it's a buffet. I'm like, take what you need, leave what you don't. I'm the Home Depot of health and wellness. I will give you the tools you need, but you've got to go home and build it. Like, right. Like, so I think being able to help people know how to get to that next place is such a beneficial thing. Because so many people are just like, I don't know what to do. And what's funny
Yeah.
is it's my job to help them realize that they actually do know what to do. They're just terrified to do it.
Yeah, well, that's I was actually just thinking, I'm like, "Oh, I need to, like, sometime book a session with you," because the one time that we had that, we talked about, basically, I was just, like, in a relationship. It wasn't a bad relationship, but it wasn't where I was supposed to be, and I knew that deep down, and I
Yeah.
remember you told me, like, "You're still doing everything for everyone else, and, like, you need to do what's right for you," and I was like, "Wow," like, that was, like, really eye-opening, like, something I already knew, but, like, wouldn't allow myself
Yeah.
to confront, and then, like, just having you say that to me, like, it completely changed my whole life path, like, seriously,
Yeah.
because then I ended up breaking up with that guy, which was the best for both of us. I found my husband, like, it was just, like, everything that was supposed to happen.
I love that. I think that we don't listen to ourselves enough. We're so conditioned to make everybody else happy that we often
Mhm,
lose ourselves in that pecking order. If I ask a woman typically, what are the most important things to you? Like name the top 10 most important things in your life, and they will name 10 things and not include themselves
mm,
every time. And I'm just saddened and in awe of that reality for so many people. And so I first of all, I love my job because I think it is an honor and a privilege to get to love people for a living, because that's kind of how I think of it. And part of the
Mhm.
ways that I love my clients is to remind them that you have power that you're not acknowledging. You know
Yeah.
what you want, but you are terrified of letting that person down, or letting yourself down, or letting a parent down, or a friend, or whatever it is. And the reality is, yeah, but what if you said yes to you? What if you said yes to you? And what if that yes was best for them too? Especially when it comes to breakups, because I think that there's this idea that I shouldn't break up with somebody if they're a good person. Even if it doesn't work for me, they can be doing everything right. They're the nice person, they're good looking. On paper, it is perfection. But if it's not there, it's okay that it's not there. And that doesn't mean that they are bad or that you are bad. Like,
Mhm.
multiple truths can coexist at the same time. I recognize this person is amazing. And I also recognizing that they're not my amazing person. And that there is
Yeah.
an amazing out there that I'm looking for, but this isn't quite it. Just giving yourself permission to value a friendship more than a romantic connection. And to say,
Yeah.
I'd rather keep you in my life as a friend than try to force romantic stuff to happen and us resent and hate each other later.
Yeah. And it's like so funny when I think back on it, like, oh, I don't want to break up with you because you're a nice guy, as if there's like no other nice guys in the world, right? Like there's
Right,
definitely
right.
other nice
But
guys.
there's that fear because we've experienced the not nice guys,
Hmm.
and I think that that is a scary, that's, we talk about, just being a woman and like that's it. And I
Yeah.
hear it all the time when they hear feminists talk, well, it's not all men, it's not all men. And I'm like, I agree, it's not all men. But if, when every time you get a glass of water, if every third time you got sick, every third time you drank water you got sick,
You'd
would
be
you start
terrified of water.
suspicious of all water? Yes,
Yeah.
because it's not personal. I assume you are guilty until you have proven yourself to not be, because that keeps me safe. And I have
Hmm.
to be safe because the system is rigged against me as a woman in the world. Again,
Yeah.
not, I know that I'm speaking from a privileged place, and I fully want to acknowledge that and say, I
Hmm.
am still privileged, even though, because I'm white.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
so I recognize that that privilege doesn't extend even to everybody. That there are some women of color especially, that have it a far different circumstance than me. But I think that that's all the more reason that we have to sort of be that way, whether it's the nice guys or the good guys. But the problem with the nice guys is that there's that fear that there isn't going to be another one, or that the
Yeah.
next one's going to be a monster. And so I have to cling to this one, otherwise I'm stupid, right? Like, but again, that's such pendulum black and white thinking. Whereas there's
Yeah.
this little thing that's like, he could be good and still not be the right one for me, and that's okay. And that's okay.
Yeah. And I think that applies to business as well. Like I think we get so hung up on like, oh, it needs to go this way. It needs to look this
Yes.
certain way, when really there's like a broad spectrum of like the
Oh
different
yeah.
choices or outcomes that could come from your business. And it's probably not
Yeah.
going to look the way that you think it's going to look, but like that's the
Right.
beauty of it.
And
Yeah.
I think too, just that idea that it's got to be perfect before I can launch. Like, if it doesn't look like the fully fleshed out dream in my head, like if it doesn't match my Pinterest board, like it's not going to happen. I'm not going to do it, or it's not going to work, is ridiculous. And you have to sort of start somewhere. Like, again, I
Mhm.
started coaching inside of this woman's like log cabin that she lived out of. Like, that her home was upstairs and the office was downstairs, but like that's where it started. And
Yeah.
now I have my own like office where I get to do my thing and get to love it. And it's funny because even what I dreamed didn't end up where I ended up,
Yeah.
but for the better, because I allowed it to live and breathe and grow organically and not need it to be perfect right out the gate. Like,
Yeah. I
how do I
love
get
that.
started? How do I start practicing at business?
Yeah.
How do I be a beginner? Right. I think it's huge
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
I think, yeah, just like literally doing it and getting past that imposter syndrome is one of the biggest steps. I think that holds so many
Agreed.
people back.
I love that you said imposter syndrome. I'm going to say something wildly unpopular. I
Okay.
do not believe in imposter syndrome. I
Okay.
think that imposter syndrome is us carrying somebody's expectations other than our own.
Mm. I mean,
Like, who
yeah.
said you're an imposter? According to who? Who benefits from that BS? What do you think? Do you want to be
Yeah.
here? Are you here? Welcome to the party. That's it. There's no, I have to be at this, according to who? And sometimes that expectation is from your own perfectionism. Like maybe it's
Hmm.
not somebody else's voice, maybe it is yours. But why? Why does it have to be perfect? Who told you it had to be perfect? Right? Did you fail as a little kid and somebody made you feel really stupid and now you are terrified to feel that feeling again? So you're avoiding it altogether? Right? Again,
Yeah.
according to who benefits, what do I want? Like, I think that that's such a huge step to take in this thing, because otherwise that feeling of imposter is this feeling that I'm not meeting somebody else's expectations of me.
Yeah. Yeah. You just got to show up for yourself and do
That's
what makes
right.
you
And then
Yeah.
there is no such thing as an imposter. If you're being authentically you and not who somebody told you you should be, hate that
Hmm.
word, then you're not an imposter. You're exactly who you are. And it might not look like somebody else, but you're not trying to be somebody else. And
Yeah.
if you
And
are,
like you
again, ask
said,
yourself
those
why.
people, yeah, exactly. And like you said earlier, like those people who are saying like it should be, those aren't your people. And so it doesn't matter anyways.
Exactly. I absolutely, like, somebody could pick at my front porch and be like, Marie Elam's a terrible coach. And I'm going to go out there and offer them water because it's really hot here in Georgia, but I'm not going to take them seriously because I know who I am. And just because
Hmm.
I'm not your cup of tea doesn't mean that I'm not somebody's. And so that's enough for me. And therefore, I'm not going to take on this imposter. So somebody throwing garbage at my feet and put my name on it does not make it my trash to pick up. So I'm just one of those people that if you think something about me that's none of my business. That's none of my business, because I know who I am and who I'm trying to be. And I am not perfect, but I was never trying to be. So if somebody's like,
Yeah.
you don't do that perfectly, that's right. I don't. But look at
Yeah.
me trying anyway, even though it's not perfect. Isn't that great? Doesn't that feel good? Like once
Well,
we kind of lean into that kind of junk, it's funny how it doesn't have any power over you anymore, right?
mhm.
And it starts to feel like arguing with somebody over the color of the sky. Like, I know it's blue. You can tell me it's purple all day long, but I'm looking at it and it's blue. So, right. So I think if we love ourselves that way and sort of honor our own truth that way and not try to let somebody else tell us what it should look like,
Mhm.
you will never feel that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Even if you're not at your best in that moment, it's who said you had to be at your best 24/7 for the whole of your life? What sort of unrealistic expectation is that? You're
Yeah.
going to fail. Do it. Get used to it. Love it. Embrace it. You will learn far more from that than you ever will from getting it right. It will be your best teacher if you just don't beat yourself up over the fact that it's going to happen. Because it
Mhm.
isn't failure to fail, it's failure when you stop trying. Falling isn't the problem, staying down is.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw somewhere, I don't want to take credit for it, but like the key to a successful entrepreneur isn't the person who has like a success on the first launch or like, like it's the person who keeps failing and keeps trying. And
Oh,
that
yeah.
completely agree with that because it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of mistakes. It's going to take a lot of fails. It's going to take a lot for not only you to get your feet off the ground, but also for you to actually figure out what you want to do. Because if it just happened right off the bat, then you would never even know that that's actually what you wanted.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's always going to be somebody to critique you who's not going to like what you're doing, who's going to have an opinion about what you're doing. And you have to stay true to your vision and the vision of the clientele that you've imagined, like your ideal, like your avatar client. Like if you picture like the one person that would be like your perfect person to be your
Hmm.
customer, to be your client, to be your whatever, and build your business around that idea, then when somebody comes and tells you, I hate this, this is wrong, this is bad, that just means it's not for them. Dita
Hmm.
Von Teese, this is the best person, my favorite person to quote. She's a burlesque dancer. And she has this quote that she's known for, and I'm going to probably chop it to heck. And I'm sorry, Dita, if you ever see this. But she says, you could be the ripest, juiciest peach in the world, and there's still going to be somebody that doesn't like peaches. And so
Yeah.
I just love that, because that just, when I hear somebody that's like, well, I think you could do it this way, or I think the colors should look like this, or what about this font instead of that? You know what? Do what makes you happy. And the other people that makes them happy too will be attracted to you.
Mhm.
The people that aren't won't. And those people, again, are not your clients. So that's when you just go, thank you for that feedback. And you
Mhm.
smile and you let them walk away and you don't change a thing.
Because like you were saying, if you appealed to everyone, which it's not going to happen no matter how hard you try, but basically you're just fitting into that same framework of what men have told you that you need to be, which is smiley and thin and beautiful and,
Yeah.
just like always happy. And that's not what that's not what I want to be, at least. I can't speak for everyone,
No.
but
No, and I think most, especially women, if this is women working with women, if that's your gig, I love that. But you're gonna have to do so much deconstructing with those people because women have been so busy doing what they're told
Mhm.
that they haven't slowed down enough to do what they want.
Yeah.
We are choked out by shoulds, right? You should stay home with your children. You should breastfeed, it's healthier. You should use cotton, reusable diapers, not disposable ones. Like there's so much like shame in every little thing that you could be doing as a woman. Well, who own it? Like a woman, how do you take care of your children? Don't your children suffer with you working? Like, I mean, the shame in it is so loud, and you have to be so honed into your own voice like a lighthouse in a storm, or you will get crushed by the wave of everybody else's voices. And it is
Mhm.
crippling. So when I say like write your goals down and anchor them everywhere, I tell entrepreneurs, if you've got a vision, anchor it to all of your senses. So for sight, put up quotes or pictures or a vision board for the business that you want, or the ideal client that you want. Like put those things in front of you all the time, quotes that are positive, but that also give you not toxic positivity. You want to also recognize when things are bad. It's allowed to be bad. You're allowed to take a day off and eat ice cream and stay in your pajamas all day, right? Like loving
Yeah.
yourself looks like leaving room for all of that. And I think that that's just such a big deal, especially as women, to just give yourself permission in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that that's great. That's funny you answered my question because I was about to ask you, like, how would you suggest that someone does that? But you were right on it. You beat me to
I,
it.
I think that you just have to, again, if it's, for sound, for your senses of sound, have some music that really motivates you, right? Put some empowering female artists in your ears that are like singing empowering, beautiful, amazing songs that make you feel awesome. If you get anxiety easy, keep smells, essential oils around you. Put something in your nose that what do you want your store's signature smell to smell like when people walk in the door? Keep that smell around you, like whatever it is. Taste, even like having something that takes you to that place, like drinking water. It's like, I'm going to drink every time I drink water. I'm going to remember that I'm staying healthy so that I can have this business, have this life that I want, and put this difference out in the world. Like anchor your choices, anchor your beliefs, anchor your vision so that nobody else is speaking into it. I
Yeah.
just anchor yourself, like so that you remember what your voice is. Get some
Hmm.
trusted people who are not yes people, who will challenge you if you are making a poor decision.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
next best thing, I think.
Are you familiar with the Enneagram?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm a 9, so I really like that advice because I feel like I can tend to like sway with other people's like opinions or like what they want from me just because I'm
Yeah.
like trying to keep the peace. So like just really like anchoring in and constantly like having that reminder, I think is a really
Yeah.
powerful thing.
I love that. What's funny is that when I tested when I was young, I was a 9.
Oh, really?
And I'm a 2 now, which is really, really weird. And I didn't think that they could change, but I've talked to other people that have said when they've gone like decades and then taken it again, that they get like a
Hmm.
totally different thing because they've evolved and they're a different person than they were 10 years ago. And so I think that's a
Yeah.
cool thing too.
I think it's do you ever feel like that can happen, like the mistyping can happen because maybe just like the influences around you too? Because when I first took it, well, what I've learned a lot about nines is that you can like easily identify yourself in other people. So like the first few times I took it, I kept getting different numbers and I was like, I'm really confused. Like I can't figure out what I am. And eventually I got to nine and now it is always a nine. But yeah, it was like I was like, I don't think this is working for me.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think that that's so mirroring is something that a lot of us do because it gives us a sense of connectivity. And here's the thing, you know, as somebody who was late diagnosis ADHD, but who definitely had it my whole life, one of the things that I learned to do um, was to mirror what I was seeing, whether that was somebody's body language or tone, or if I hang out with somebody with an accent for too long, I will start picking up their accent. Like it is a thing. Like it's so funny. And I think that that just comes from the fact that, and I'm not going to say never. I rarely hear men talking about this because I just don't think it happens to them as much because they're taught to take up room and space in the world. Women are taught to shrink and just go where we're needed and fit where we are and contort and carve ourselves up to make somebody else happy or to fit the situation or what have you. And I think as a result of that, we often exist in the shoulds. Oh, well, I should say this because that's the right thing to say when they're taking those tests. Well, I feel this, but I should say this because that's and they second guess themselves. Like I can't tell you how often women are gaslighting themselves because somebody else did it first. Somebody else made them feel crazy for something that felt very true to them. They got vulnerable and said it to someone and someone made them feel stupid for it or made them feel like they were wrong. That's silly. Why would you feel that? Why would you think that? Why would you? And that kind of garbage is what makes women do that and retest at different things because they're testing under the influence of all the shoulds that have been piled on them since they were little, all the what it should look like, how you should respond, right? A good woman will respond like this. We will be polite and we will be friendly and we won't be angry and we definitely won't be cranky with anybody, especially not somebody out in public. Like, what will people think? That masking that we do to fit in, to always be what society is telling us we should be, makes a lot of people not test well. I can't tell you how many people that come to work with me and I go, what do you want?
Mm.
They have no idea. They could tell me what their kids want. They could tell me what their husband wants, what their job wants, what their church wants, what their parents want, what their siblings want. And they can't tell me what they want because they've never asked themselves that question. They're so busy following those shoulds that they're going to follow them right to the grave.
Oh,
And there are people that choose that. And it's because they don't think that there's another choice. And that's the
yeah.
other reason I was saying I love social media now, because now we're realizing, oh, you mean there are other choices and this isn't happening just to me, that people are doing this everywhere, right? Like I think that community is so needed. I think that
Mhm.
podcasts where people are talking to other people and people are listening to it, I think it's needed because I've been that person sitting in my home with my dream all alone, not knowing what the next step was and feeling like I didn't know enough to even take the first step. I
Yeah.
know what that feels like, and that is a lonely feeling. So for anybody that sees or hears this podcast, like that's in that lonely place, start with just going and hanging out with other people that are doing different kinds of things that you want to do. If you've got 3 or 4 things you're thinking about, contact 3 or 4 people, buy them lunch and just pick their brain and see, or try something and fail and then try something else, because that's okay too.
Yeah.
As much as we say life is short, we actually live a lot longer than we used to. And so you've got more time than you think. And I think it's okay to just take risks sometimes
Mhm.
and again and fail and get back up and figure it out and do it again until you find
Yeah.
the thing that makes you want to get up every single morning and do
And then,
something
like,
with it.
realize that you deserve that because I think
Yes.
one really hard thing is, you can create the kinda life you want. We live in a world where that's, like, very possible, and you can create the business that you want where you're working part-time for full-time money. But, like, one thing that I kinda had to struggle with my business, and like I sometimes still don't feel like I deserve to like have what I have, you know, like why should I get to work from home? Why should I get to make my own schedule? Like, but like that is so silly because like if you have the opportunity to do it, then why would you not do it? Just because like someone else doesn't want to take the risk, or someone else maybe even can't, doesn't mean that like if I can, that I shouldn't do it, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that that idea is right up there with the idea that somebody has it better is the same as the idea that there's somebody out there that has it worse than you. And I think both can be really crippling, because you would never go to somebody who was just stabbed in the hospital and walk up to them and go, well, at least they didn't shoot you. Right? Like you would never do that. You would let that be what it is and let it be awful for that person and terrible for that person and not need to compare it to anything else. In the same way, I wouldn't say to myself, well, I'm not allowed to drink this water because there are people without water.
Mm.
I know that there are people without water. I will work with charities with people who don't have water, but that doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to drink water because somebody doesn't have access to it. But it does mean that I get to recognize that privilege and not take it for granted, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that is. I'm using water as an example, but like the point is that there's always going to be somebody that's got it better. There's always going to be somebody that's got it worse. Just exist as you are, and that's okay. You are allowed to take up space. You are
Mm.
allowed to be happy. You are allowed to be sad. You're allowed to be okay and to not be okay, and all of it is allowed. And comparison is the thief of joy. Anytime we are comparing ourselves to others in good or bad ways, it's stealing something from us. It's stealing us our right to grieve when we're sad about something, right?
Mm.
You have a breakup and you're really sad about it. Somebody says, well, this is for the best and everything's okay. No, if you want to grieve, grieve loud. Do whatever you have to do for you. You're allowed. Equally, if you're happy and somebody else is going through a hard time, you're still allowed to be happy. It might change how you express it around that person, but it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to exist in that place. It's the truth. Exist in it. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, Marie, well, kind of to wrap up, I just want to ask you one piece of, or one little question, and then I was going to see, are you okay if we do a card reading?
Sure. I
Okay,
love
cool.
it.
Because I've been ending the podcast with like a card reading, just kind of for you and your business.
I
So,
love
first off is if you could offer one piece of advice to a new or struggling health and wellness entrepreneur, what would that be?
it. Take care of yourself first. You can't pour out of an empty cup. If you are
Yeah.
really going to get into the wellness industry where you are going to be actively and intentionally pouring into other people, you cannot afford financially, physically, mentally to not fill your own cup up first to do that and to be fiercely protective and guarded about that love of self. And that's not a selfish love. That is, I am filling this vessel up so that I can then pour into the things that I want to pour into and not be empty at the end of it. Right. So I think that's the best thing that I would tell people is just you have to take care of yourself first. It doesn't mean that you can't take care of others while you're taking care of yourself. You don't have to like get to some perfect healed place, but you do have to be at least a few steps ahead of the people that you are leading.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, let's see. So I just pulled you the magician. So let's see what this guy's all about. Oh, whoops.
This is such I I've done tarot in the past, so I'm super excited about this.
Oh, you did tarot in the past?
Uh-huh. So I know what the magician means, so I'm
Oh, you
excited.
do? Well, then you should tell us because I have to look this stuff up. I don't know it off the top of my
No,
head.
it's totally fine. So I have like a whole tarot beautiful deck on my little area back here in the back. So the magician is literally creating something out of nothing.
Oh,
So
I love
where
that.
there was nothing, it is about bringing something that wasn't there before into the light, which is, if that's the card for my business, considering I mentioned the book writing,
That is so
so
perfect. It
perfect.
fits so
Because it's
well.
literally, I'm drawing from my own magic. I am creating something where there was nothing That is the perfect card. I am in love with that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
this it says here as a master manifester, the magician brings you the tools, resources, and energy you need to make your dreams come true. Seriously, everything you need right now is at your fingertips. I
Yep,
love that. That's so
exactly. I love
perfect.
it. That's so
Oh my
perfect. I
gosh.
love it.
Well, I am so excited for you and your book. I can't wait to read it once you're all finished. That's
Thank
really
you for
exciting.
having
And
me. I'm excited.
yeah, I'm so glad that you came on and this was such a fun conversation. Why don't you let everybody know like where they can find you, follow you on Instagram or work
Absolutely.
with
All my
you?
handles are at Marie Chose Love, and I am on Instagram and TikTok primarily. You can find me. I've got a page on Facebook as well, but I'm not on there quite as much. Or you can go to my website at www.mariechoselove.com. If you want to chat and have a free session or anything, you can give me a call there and find me in all my socials. Marie Chose Love.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks.
All right, guys.